All right, today we're diving into a pretty controversial theory that's been making the rounds online. It claims it knows exactly why some marriages that seem stable for decades can suddenly just fall apart. It's called the time bomb theory, and we're going to break it all down piece by piece.
So the whole thing kicks off with this really dramatic question. It sets the stage for this phenomenon that, according to the source, is leaving partners completely blindsided and desperate for an explanation.
And right away, with a quote like this, you get a taste of just how provocative this is going to be. See, the idea here isn't that people just slowly drift apart over the years. No, this is about a sudden, shocking change that seems to come out of absolutely nowhere.
Okay, so to really get what this theory is all about, we've got to start with the specific scenario it describes, what it calls the sudden transformation. The source paints this really stark before and after picture. On one hand, you have a woman who seems totally happy with her family life. Raising the kids, planning family trips, and then, bam, a total 180. Her focus flips completely outward, and she starts seeking all this new attention and excitement.
So, how do you explain that? That sudden jump from stability to chaos? Well, that's where the core of their argument comes in, the time bomb thesis.
Now, what's really crucial to understand about this theory is that it's presented as, well, a sure thing. The source doesn't frame this as a maybe, but as a biological certainty. The argument is that there's this fundamental rewiring of the brain that's pretty much unavoidable.
So how do they back this up? Well, the video claims that a woman's brain chemistry, her whole reward system, just completely changes over time. Simple things that used to bring joy, like holding hands, supposedly don't even register anymore. Instead, the argument goes, the brain starts needing these huge emotional jolts, what the source calls an emotional earthquake, just to feel, well, anything at all.
Right, so what's the trigger? What sets this supposed time bomb off? According to the source, it all comes down to this big psychological event they call an identity collapse.
And what they mean by identity collapse is this deep crisis that, they argue, comes from how society raises women. The claim is that from day one, a woman's value is tied to her looks and being desired. So when that external approval naturally starts to fade with age, her whole sense of who she is just starts to fall apart.
This quote really gets to the heart of it. The source is saying that an identity built only on appearance is incredibly fragile. So when it collapses, it's not just about vanity. We're talking about a full-on existential crisis here.
And to drive this point home, the video uses this really stark comparison for how men and women are taught to view aging. It says society basically tells men they're like a fine wine, getting better and more valuable with age, but it tells women they're like milk, with a clear expiration date. And this, the source argues, creates two totally different mindsets for dealing with getting older.
But wait, it's not just about what's going on inside, psychology or biology. The source also points the finger at a few modern-day accelerants. These are external things that it says just pour gasoline on the fire.
The video lists a few of these, what it calls poisonous influences. You've got things like, say, divorced friends who are kind of cheerleading a new lifestyle. You've got social media feeds that are constantly showing you these fantasy better lives. And then there's this bigger cultural message that they claim pushes personal feelings over long-term commitments.
Okay, so we've covered the why. Now the theory shifts to the what. The supposed red flags to look for, and what it claims is the inevitable result.
The source lays out a very specific sequence of behaviors that it calls warning signs. First, there's nostalgia, looking back at the good old days, or even exes. Then, new influences start popping up, like spending way more time with those divorced friends. After that, you see these drastic changes, like a sudden obsession with the gym or dressing younger. And the final step? Emotional withdrawal, needing space or starting fights to build a case to leave.
And here's a really key part of the argument. To justify leaving, the source alleges that the woman has to completely rewrite the marriage's history. It's about turning what seemed like a good, stable marriage into this long story of misery, with her husband cast as the bad guy.
So what happens next? Well, the source paints a pretty grim picture. That new, exciting life, it often doesn't pan out. Instead, the video claims what's left is loneliness, exhaustion, and this big, sinking feeling of regret. The realization that she gave up something deep and real for something shallow.
And all of this leads up to the video's final warning, and the advice it gives to men who think they're seeing this happen in their own lives.
This quote really sums up the whole deterministic viewpoint of the source. The argument is that what the husband did or didn't do, it doesn't really matter. The real fight, according to this theory, is between her and aging. The husband, in this view, is just collateral damage in a battle he was never really a part of.
And so the video wraps up with this 3-step piece of advice. It basically says, 1, you gotta see the signs for what they are. 2, you need to understand this isn't about you failing. And 3, you have to protect yourself and your kids by, as they put it, preparing for war.
Which, of course, leaves us with a huge question. Is this time bomb theory a real biological thing, like the source claims it is? Is it just a modern-day myth? Or is this whole controversial story, whether it's accurate or not, actually pointing to something much deeper about our culture, about our anxieties with aging, identity, and relationships? That's the big question we'll leave you with.